Good morning. It's great to be with you. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Merry Christmas, a Merry Christmas. God bless you. You know, there's something about that name, the Son of God. In the book of Matthew chapter 26, verses 57 right on down to verse 68, they laid hold of him and they led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the elders and the scribes were assembled. Peter followed at a distance. The one who says, "Lord, I'll not only live with you, but I'm ready to die with you," he followed at a distance in the courtyard, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. The chief priests and the elders brought false testimony against Jesus. They didn't have a case. They didn't have anything good to go on, but they all agreed he should be put to death. Many false witnesses came forward, but none with any evidence against Jesus. They said, "Well, this fellow said, I'm going to destroy the temple of God and build it up again in 3 days." And the high priest arose and said to Jesus, "How do you answer this?" And Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said, "I adjure you by the living God, tell us, are you the Christ, the Son of God? Are you the Christ, the Son of God?" And Jesus answered, "It is you who are saying it. But I say, hereafter you will see the Son of Man." He always called himself the Son of Man, not the Son of God. Could you imagine what it would be like going around those people feeding thousands and calling themselves the Son of God? They would have went crazy. They would have went crazy. But here's what he says, "But I say hereafter, you're going to see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, coming in the clouds," judgment. And the priest tore his clothes, saying, "He speaks blasphemy." You heard his blasphemy. He is deserving of death. And then they got really angry. And they got really tore up. And they spat upon him. And they beat him. And they struck him with the palm of their hands. And they said, "Prophesy to us, Christ. Who hit you? Who struck you? Who hit you? Who struck you?" And they spat. And they beat. And they mocked. And they condemned him. And they just sick. The multitudes followed him throughout his ministry. And many Jews were transformed by his words. Paul, Nicodemus, Cornelius, and thousands were changed by Jesus Christ. That's what it's all about. The transforming power of God. God can transform our lives. God can make us new. You remember in the day of Pentecost? Thousands of Israelites responded by acting upon their faith, repenting of their sins pricked in their hearts, repenting of their sins, and they were buried with Christ in baptism, verse 38. And the church grew by leaps and bounds. It seems whoever came in contact with the Son of God were changed. Some for the better and some for the worse. But people flocked to hear him speak. They loved to hear him speak. Even the little children loved him. But of course there were some who hated him with a passion. You see, that's the case. You either love him or you hate him. There's no in between. And they were always following him around, trying to trick him, to trap him, to lead him into falsehood. You remember the day Jesus said, before Abraham was born, I am. John chapter 8, verse 58. Do you recall the next verse? John chapter 8, verse 59. What did they do? They picked up stones to stone him. And Jesus had to slip away from the temple grounds. You remember the day Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 30, I and the Father are one. John chapter 10, verse 31, the very next verse, they picked up stones to stone him. He was not always popular. He was not always liked. In Matthew 26, back to Matthew 26, the high priest and the crowds gathered, they reacted with anger and violence, and they yelled at him and they beat him in their illegal court. Hostility erupted. What did Jesus do that made them so angry? I think it was the question, are you the Son of God? Are you the Son of God? You remember the passage in Luke chapter 1, verse 35. The Holy Spirit will come upon you. The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. The Holy One will be born, and he shall be called the Son of God. The Bible teaches the deity of Christ. The Bible teaches that Jesus shall be called the Son of God. Jesus didn't take this upon himself. The demons repeated the phrase. They were frightened and they were scared. In Matthew chapter 3, verse 11, whenever the evil spirits saw Jesus, they fell down and cried, you are the Son of God. Later on, Pilate says, according to the law, he must die because he claims to be the Son of God. There's something about that phrase, the Son of God, the deity of Christ. The deity of Christ. People were shook up. People were shook up. There's something about Son of God. When Caiaphas heard it, he shouted, blasphemy. Jesus Christ was not just a mere man, a good teacher, a good person, a good example. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Thought it not robbery to be equal with God, Philippians 2, verse 6, on an equality with God. But he took upon himself the form of a servant, became a servant, came to earth and became obedient even unto death. You remember the prophet Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6? Jesus, call him wonderful. Call him wonderful. Wonderful. Call him counselor. Call him mighty God. Speaking of Jesus, call him mighty God. Call him everlasting Father, and call him Prince of Peace. You remember the day he was born, the angel declared, call his name Emmanuel, Matthew 1, 2, and 3, which means God with us. In the beginning was the Word, Jesus the Christ. And the Word, Logos, Jesus, was with God, and the Word was God. The whole book of Colossians speaks of the supremacy of Christ. The supremacy of Christ. Paul said in Colossians 2, verse 9, for in him Christ, all the fullness of the Godhead bodily resided. Jesus is God. It was not blasphemy. He didn't deserve to die. He had to die. but he didn't deserve it. I deserved to die, and he died in my place. He accepted his rightful title. He accepted his rightful title. Jesus Christ, more than a mere man. Jesus Christ is God. God. That's the one we come to worship every first day of the week. Jesus said in John chapter 14, I am the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. You can't get to the Father unless you come through me. He loves you, and I want you to have a wonderful day. May God bless you and keep you and strengthen you and give you the power to keep on keeping on. May God bless you. Have a wonderful day.